Hello and welcome everyone. I wanna present you today my Magica DragonKnight build for the patch Morrowind. I tested quite a few sets, such as Seducer and other sustain sets. And to start off with, we have Desert Rose at the moment with Shaker Breaker and 2 Walking. The reason for Desert Rose is in this patch I feel like you need a set which does give you for a longer duration more sustain as Seducer does, because Seducer has one problem. After a time that can be like 20 seconds, a half minute, you run out of resources when you don't have your potion ready, and then it gets quite empty on your resource pool. That's why I choose a proc set to use for my magical sustain. Remember that this is every 4 seconds, so you have just a basic sustain from that, and it does not um, cover your entire sustain. Um, the other set is Shackle Breaker. As we saw right here, Desert Rose is a full sustain set, and so I decided to go a more damage to a more damage part set like Shackle Breaker. The thing about Shackle Breaker is that you get extra magical recovery and extra stamina recovery. That's quite important because it covers uh, it covers the base resource gain from Magica with Desert Rose and this one over here, and gives you a quite nice benefit on the magical recovery in this patch, which is pretty much needed in the current state. Also for resource management, I run one reduce cost glyph and one magical recovery glyph. That's just because the skills on Magica DKs are so expensive. We can see it right here, like talents almost 4k, and yeah, without that sustain, you can't really go in large or longer fights in there. Um, with this setup, you have a quite nice regeneration. The thing about that is, if all the passives from heavy armor, with all those recovery and cost reduction and the desert rose, you can sustain with potion against poison. This is also pretty good in the non-CPE campaign, and for battlegrounds for sure, yeah. Um, and Vulcan Scoria, of course, just for the extra burst when it procs every 6-7 seconds. How you can see, um, we have everything, almost everything in sturdy. We run 5 sturdy currently. I would like to have 7 sturdy, but I still have this one walking infused shoulder and the impen helmet. What isn't that bad, but I would prefer to go 7 sturdy on this build just to get the maximum on block cost reduction. The thing about sturdy is when you go for sturdy, you don't get impen, right? Um, so to match this a little bit, I'm gonna explain you real quick. In the champion points, we have a 3 resistance that's over here. I put a few points in here. I know it doesn't scale well with the points, but that's the only source we can get the impenetrable from, and that's quite important. Another thing about my setup is the lack on impenetrable on my armor pieces. I do match that with the dry stud glyphs. So on every little part, I have put one multi-effect enchantment glyph on. That means I get like 193 health also from the small parts. That that does like the same thing as you would spend points into impenetrable. You just get a higher health pool. So that's another thing how you can compensate this lack of impenetrable. It isn't that bad, but yeah, still 1.5 to 2k would be better, but you can't go higher in this setup. Yeah, that has also to do with the sturdy because we have to run. It's almost a must-have for Magica DK to block, and so yeah, the sturdy is the way to go for Magica DragonKnight. So the stats, my Magica is on 41k. My magical recovery is actually quite high on 1.4. My health on the back bar it's almost 29k. That's pretty high, and yeah, it also covers you from high burst DPS and crit blades and proc sets and everything. Um, yeah, the stamina is really high. That has also to do with the blocking. You can almost permanently blocking on this build, and it's quite okay-ish against yeah, when you get in fights where you are like outnumbered. Um, Even in BGs, you can pretty much sustain permanently in block. The stamina recovery is 700 with the heavy armor passives for sure. It scales a little bit up to 1k. My spell damage isn't really high. What you could do is you could put instead of the block cost reduction, you could for 1v1s for example, you can put a spell damage glyph over here, then it scales also pretty well here. Then we have 1.6k spell damage, but for BGs and yeah, open world zero deal, I would go for the extra cost uh, reduction, just that you make sure that you can sustain at any point, at any time, in every situation. And it also gives you a little bit more time to breathe. That's actually pretty good. So I have everything arcane, Desert Rose rings I have, and the belt and the gloves. The reason for the 5-2 heavy setup is 5 heavy, 2 light, is because the shields of Desert Rose are pretty expensive, but not even that would matter because I just literally couldn't find them on the market because they are pretty rare, and I also would have need like the swords for Desert Rose, so I can't really go 6-1. 6-1 would be the perfect setup for this in this current patch, I believe. But yeah, the swords and the shields are so rarely that you almost can't get it. Something else, I have, of course, put all my attributes into Magica. You could actually go everything on your gear for Max Magica glyphs and put some more points into health. That would also make a little you a little more tanky when you don't have that much critical resistance. Yeah, I'm running the Adronach on this build. The reason is you just can't sustain without, so I had to pick that one, even though I pretty much would prefer the mage, but it's really not possible and it doesn't make any sense to, yeah, to get less recovery in this patch. Even when you get outnumbered, you sometimes wish that you have more recovery and shit like that to sustain longer. My skill bar looks like the same as in the last patch with Willpower, Seducer, and Magnus it was. I'm using Inner Light on the front bar, Talons, Lash, Engulfing Flames, and the Burning Embers for the heal. In non-CP, I wouldn't run the Shooting Star, I would run the Dawnbreaker of Smiting. Um, and in CP, you can run Dawnbreaker or Meteor, and on the back bar you can use like Banner or the Spell Wall is pretty nice, but it's yeah, it's up to your preference. On the back bar as well, I use the Structurate Entropy that gives me a little bit more health. That's pretty nice when you like um, when you cast your Dragon Blood, you get more heal because that's a percentage heal. And Ignis Shield for sure for the ulti return, the Major Mending, and the shield, which is really good. With the last patch, they buffed it pretty well. And I'm running the Shattering Rocks. The reason for Shattering Rocks is um, it does more damage. It does actually damage. The other morph is just root. And to be honest, Fossilize isn't that great. I would always, or every good DK should go for Shattering Rocks because it's just a nice damage increase and you can feel it. The thing is about Fossilize, it's an extra root, but for what do you need a root when you have already talents and shit like that going on? Or the Dawnbreaker as well. You don't need that. The other thing is volatile armor. When we activate that one, we got on the back bar spell resistance 30k. Notice that I run sharpened sword on both bars. The reason for this one over here is I could like use the other morph of the vampire swarm like over here, and it gives me a nice damage increase. That's pretty much the only reason why I choose that one. Um, yeah, if you run like spell wall on your back bar, it would actually make more sense to run a defensive sword to increase your resistance even higher. The next thing, I think we're gonna go in the CP real quick. CP is a pretty basic part of the game, and I really like what I choose over here. The green tree is pretty much what you need. You need to focus on 3 points. The first thing is break free for sure. When you can reduce the break free cost, you can also block longer, and it saves you a lot of stamina. The other thing is the magical recovery. Now that they have removed the cost reduction from the CP, you have to put even more points into here that it benefits your sustain. And Shadow Ward 23 as well. like the break free to get the maximum, which does make sense in my opinion to go for as Magica DK. Um, I wouldn't go higher as 72 points in Shadow Ward. The reason for that is the 2% does actually make like 28 points differences, so it doesn't make any sense to put more points in here because the benefit gets even lower with more points spending in. Yeah, 66 Arcanist, Warlord, 72. Then we have Expert Defender. The reason why I put points into Expert Defender is pretty much because of all the fucking Stam Knight Blades. They're gonna use heavy attacks. Yeah, just to decrease this damage a little bit, I choose this one over here. You can really feel it when you have a Stam Nightblade on you the entire time with the heavy attack in cap combo that just does too much damage. And with that you have a really good counterpart to that one. The next one I have choose Hardy and Elemental Defender to put 20 points in. That's almost a 6% damage mitigation to everything. Then I have Thick Skinned that scales actually pretty well in this patch. And so I choose like to protect myself from Destro ultimates and other Magic Dragon Knights. Yeah, to make me even stronger against such dot. I choose to put in here 51 points. It's pretty much to your own preference how you put points in here because yeah, you could probably just take some points out here and spend to Hardy and Elemental Defender and it wouldn't make that much difference because Hardy and Elemental Defender um, can also be dot in some point because Hardy with the poison and Elemental Defender with the fire dots and everything. The other thing over here, like I said before, resistance, I spent a few points in here, not too much, be careful on this passive, it does really not scale really good with the current patch. I wouldn't go higher as 25 points and also get the 19% over here by Iron Glide. That's pretty important because pretty much every ability in the game is at the first impact direct damage ability, even dots with the first tick. So this is a pretty important part in the entire constellation. And yeah, also nice is this one over here. When you have to dodge roll, you get a little increase in your resistance. If it makes a difference, I don't know. Is it nice to have? Yes. The other thing is when you bash Dark Deal, you get like health back. That's also pretty nice. And I unlocked over here a few. This one here is pretty nice. When you get like damage, 30% of your health, like fucking I don't know, track is throwing at you, so you can get like an easy magical recovery back. That's also pretty nice to have. Over here, we are running a dot build on Magic DragonKnight. That's why I choose to put a lot of points in here. I put 63 points in here. That's quite a lot because yeah, it's the major priority on my build at least that I have a high dot on the enemy to kill them. The other thing is, as I said before, almost every ability in the game is direct damage, so I buffed that as well pretty high. And here Elemental Expert doesn't really scale that good, but yeah, I believe it's worth it to put a few points in here. Um, Most people would like run 11% here. I think 13 or more gives a better benefit because most people don't spend that much points into Hardy or Elemental Defender on the other hand on the red tree. And I always yeah, put some points into Spell Erosion as well. That's for 12 points you get extra spell penetration. That's pretty nice because you need to remember that we run sword and board um, setup on both bars. That means we have only one sword, one hand sword equipped. This is pretty much another one hand sword, part of it at least, and yeah, it does increase the damage by quite a lot. Elfborn, I don't think that Elfborn is pretty much needed. Uh, for sure, it does increase your damage, but to be honest, I think Thaumaturge and Master at Arms and Elemental Expert is more important to get a higher value on that as the Elfborn, just because the crits for the dot damage which you apply on your enemy, um, it doesn't really benefit much because dot is not a high damage. Um, yeah, does not that much damage, I want to say. So I put only 2 points in here, which is 1% increase. Yeah, and that's it for the CPs. One important thing is also the shield. I run it in sturdy and not reinforced, just because sturdy is yeah, the way to go. How I said. Did I miss something? Did I miss something? Yes, I am vampire. The reason for that is the damage mitigation I get from every resource beside fire, and fire damage is almost in every part of the game a dot damage, like Destrolty and the little dot like impulse shit. It's yeah. I think it's worth it on a DK always, and yeah, yeah, that's pretty much my build. I hope you guys like it, and yeah, I see you another time.